My name is Damian Hayes, and the date was February 19th, 2024. The day my life ended and everything I thought I knew was shattered. I was 37 years old, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. I wasn't a saint, but I wasn't some devil either. I worked as a lighting technician for music festivals and live shows, had a decent apartment, a girlfriend named Tanya, and an unshakable confidence that life was mine to control. Religion was for weak minds. I used to say I believed only in what I could see, feel, measure, until the night my heart stopped and I crossed into something far beyond this reality. That night, I was backstage at a rock concert in Detroit. Ozzy Osbourne was scheduled to make a surprise appearance at a local venue for a tribute show. The irony? I had grown up listening to his music, quoting his lyrics, mocking Christians who said his influence was dark. I thought it was all showbiz, an act. Even laughed at the so-called satanic panic of the 80s. It was all exaggerated. I believed art was art, music was music, and Ozzy, to me, was just another entertainer who'd made it big despite his demons. Everything changed that night. We were rigging up a complex laser and smoke setup before the show, when I suddenly felt this sharp pain in my chest, like a bear had clawed straight through my ribs. I stumbled backward, collapsed onto the grated metal floor, and everything began to blur. I remember people yelling, someone calling for an ambulance, and then darkness swallowed me whole. But it wasn't empty. It wasn't silent. I was floating, or rather, I was being pulled. My body was left behind. I saw it sprawled on the venue floor, paramedics hunching over me with paddles, shouting something I could no longer hear. I should have panicked, but I didn't. It was like watching someone else's movie. I felt weightless, detached, like the world had gone mute and distant. Then something shifted. I was in a tunnel, but it wasn't the cliché white tunnel of peace that I'd heard about in cheesy movies. This one was darker, twisted like the inside of a speaker coil, vibrating with frequencies that weren't just sound. They were feelings, regret, lust, arrogance, anger. It was like being immersed in echoes of every decision I had ever made without caring about the consequences. At the end of that tunnel was light, but not the kind of light that welcomes you. It flickered like stage lighting, constantly shifting from blue to red to white, as if trying to confuse or dazzle. I moved toward it, not walking, not floating, just being drawn like a moth to a flame. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was a hallucination, my brain spitting out fragments of old memories, combining my love for music with the stress of death. But no, this was too vivid. He stood on a stage, guitar slung behind his back, hands raised like he was conducting a crowd I couldn't see. The man was unmistakable, long, stringy hair, black eyeliner, gothic coat lined with crucifixes, and those eyes that seemed hollow and electric at the same time. It was Ozzy Osbourne. But this wasn't the Ozzy I knew from TV or magazines. There was something wrong. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't performing. His expression was frozen, twisted in some grotesque blend of pain and power, like a puppet being held up by invisible strings. And around him, darkness, not the kind that hides things, but the kind that breathes. The air grew heavier, filled with a bassline hum that pulsed through me like poison. I tried to move, but my legs wouldn't work. I wasn't even sure I had legs anymore. All I knew was that I was there, facing him. And then he spoke. not in words, not in voice. But somehow I heard him. You followed me here. The message wasn't condemning. It wasn't even threatening. It was cold, indifferent, like a fact being read aloud. And in that instant, I knew something horrific. This place, this realm, was where souls like mine drifted, not because of murder, not because of violence, but because of idolatry. Because I had let fame, rebellion, and darkness seduce my heart, and I never once questioned it. Suddenly I felt pain, raw, blinding pain, not in my body, but in my soul. My memories began flashing before me like strobe lights. Every lyric I blasted without care. Every time I mocked Christians at festivals. Every drug-fueled night where I thought I was living free. But I wasn't free. I had been following a path lined with symbols I thought were harmless, but were really signs pointing downward. Ozzy's face began to distort, melting into different forms. Other celebrities, influencers, even a few musicians I had worked with, they all shared the same hollow eyes and faint smiles that no longer look human. And behind them, a presence loomed, something I couldn't bear to face. I dropped to my knees, if I even had knees, and screamed, not from fear, from truth, from the unbearable realization that I had traded light for shadows, and I didn't even know it. Then a voice cut through the torment like thunder over a battlefield. Enough. It was not Ozzy's voice. This voice held power. It held judgment. And it held love. Pure, fiery, unfiltered love that made every lie inside me melt like wax. The entire stage, the crowd of illusions, and even the darkness behind them shattered like glass under pressure. And in their place stood Jesus. I had never believed in him. Not really. Thought he was a story, a moral figure, a crutch for the broken. But when I saw him, eyes burning with compassion and truth, I knew I had mocked the very one who made me. And yet, he didn't mock me back. He stepped forward. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I could only collapse in his presence. And that's when he said it. Damien, your life is not your own. You were not created for stages. You were not created for shadows. You were made for me. He reached out his hand, and I didn't think. I just reached back. And just like that, I woke up back in the hospital, gasping, sobbing, screaming. The doctors thought I was in pain. But no, it was revelation. And I knew I couldn't go back to who I was. I didn't sleep for 2 nights after they discharged me from the hospital. My body was recovering, but my soul was trembling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, Jesus. And then behind him, that stage of shadows, that twisted version of Ozzy Osbourne surrounded by idols I had unknowingly bowed to my entire life. The doctors called it a brief cardiac arrest brought on by extreme stress and a minor arrhythmia. But they didn't have a name for what happened after my heart stopped. I did. It was mercy. For days, I didn't tell anyone what I saw. I tried to convince myself that maybe I hallucinated everything, some death-induced dream. But that didn't hold up. I knew what hallucinations felt like. I'd had them before, during those drug-fueled festival nights when reality blurred and music became a god. But this wasn't that. This was sharper, clearer, more real than anything in my waking life. On the 3rd day, I sat in my living room in complete silence. No music, no TV, just me and the ticking of a clock I'd never noticed before. Tanya walked in holding my favorite hoodie and asked me if I was okay. Damien, you haven't touched your phone. You're not eating. You didn't even want the concert footage from the show. What happened to you? I opened my mouth to answer, but the words tangled in my throat. How do you explain to someone that you saw Ozzy Osbourne in the afterlife? That Jesus pulled you out of a spiritual trap you didn't even know you were in? That the screaming wasn't from pain, but from realizing you've been living a lie? I died. I finally whispered. Her face dropped. What? I died. I repeated, and I saw everything. Everything I worshipped that wasn't God. Everything I made an idol of. Ozzy wasn't just Ozzy, Tanya. He was a symbol of all of it. Fame, rebellion, ego. I saw him, and then I saw Jesus. He told me I was made for him. She sat down slowly. Was this a dream? No, I said. It was a warning. That night, I opened the Bible for the first time in over 15 years. My grandmother had given me one when I was in high school. King James Version, with my name engraved on the front in gold leaf. I never read it, but I kept it in a box in my closet, more out of guilt than reverence. When I open it now, the pages smelled like old paper and forgotten truth. I didn't know where to start, so I let it fall open. It landed on Exodus 20, the 10 Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. That one verse pierced me like a sword. I hadn't just admired music. I had bowed to it. I had made the stage my sanctuary and the performers my priests. I justified it as art, as expression, but deep down, I knew I had surrendered my soul to something that promised freedom and delivered bondage. For the next week, I did nothing but read scripture, cry, and journal what I saw. I wrote about the stage, the hollow eyes, the voices that whisper behind the music. I wrote about the scream, that horrible scream that erupted from me when I realized I was standing in front of the very idols I helped build. I wrote about the way Jesus looked at me, not with hatred, but with sorrow and power, like he'd been watching me wander into darkness for years, just waiting for me to finally cry out. I couldn't go back to my old life, not after that. So I made the hardest decision I've ever made. I quit the industry. I emailed the production company I worked for and told them I was stepping away indefinitely. I sold my concert tickets, deleted my backstage passes and VIP photos, even got rid of my prized memorabilia collection, including the autographed Ozzy vinyl that used to hang above my bed. It felt like ripping off skin. But I knew those things weren't souvenirs. They were altars. Still, it wasn't enough to run from something. I had to run toward someone. I started attending a small church in Columbus, the kind I used to mock. No fancy lighting, no smoke machines, just a pastor, a piano, and a group of people who actually seemed to believe that Jesus was alive. The first time I walked in, I felt like a fraud, like the ceiling would crack open and expose me. But instead, I found peace. They didn't care who I used to be. They just welcomed me. Week by week, I began to heal. My heart was still fragile. My mind still flooded with memories. But something inside me had changed. I wasn't just trying to be a better person. I was becoming a new creation. One Sunday morning, the pastor preached on 1 John 2, verse 15. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. That verse wrecked me. I realized how much of my identity had been wrapped in loving the world, its applause, its energy, its idols. I thought I was living loud, but I had been drowning in silence. That night, I knelt in my room and prayed out loud for the first time. Jesus, you saved me. You didn't have to, but you did. I don't want to live for shadows anymore. I want to live for you. Take everything, even the things I still think I want. Take it all. Just don't let me go back. And in the quiet, I felt him again. Not a voice this time. Not thunder or fire. Just peace. I didn't need anything else. It wasn't easy. The temptation didn't disappear just because I had an encounter with Jesus. If anything, it got worse. My phone buzzed daily with messages from promoters and fellow tech engineers offering me backstage gigs, fast money, and VIP access. They didn't understand. How could they? From their perspective, I was just Damien the light guy, the guy who could make a show feel like a religious experience. But they didn't realize it was a religious experience, just for the wrong God. One night, I got a text from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Eddie, one of Ozzy's stage directors. All it said was, Ozzy's people asked about you. Big show in New York. You're perfect for it. 6 figures. You in. I stared at the screen for a long time. This was everything I used to dream of. The kind of gig that launched careers. I could already hear the roar of the crowd, feel the bass rumbling through my chest, taste the adrenaline. I almost replied, but then I remembered the stage I saw in that other realm. Not the arena, but the other stage, the one built on smoke and deception, the one where Ozzy didn't sing, he screamed, where demons laughed and light bent around shadows like something out of a nightmare. That stage wasn't entertainment. It was a trap, and I had almost stepped back into it. I deleted the text. The next morning, I gave my church testimony for the first time. I was terrified. My palms were sweating. My voice cracked. But I knew I had to speak. I told them everything. How I died. How I saw Ozzy Osbourne in the realm of spirits. How Jesus met me with burning eyes and sorrowful love. I told them about the scream that broke through my chest when I realized who I had been serving without even knowing it. No one laughed. In fact, some people cried. After service, an older woman came up to me, Sister Harriet. She gripped my hand and said, Son, I've been praying for the Lord to raise up young people with boldness to call out this deception. I believe he spared you to be one of them. Those words stayed with me. That night, I started a journal titled The Scream. I filled it with every detail I could recall, names of artists, events, lyrics that once made me feel alive but now made my soul ache. I listed out the songs I used to blast on loop, songs about darkness, rebellion, self-idolatry. I thought I was just vibing, but now I knew I had been feeding something that wanted to kill me. As I wrote, it was like I was pulling weeds from my soul. Some nights I still wrestled. I'd lie in bed, headphones off, yet hear the echo of old lyrics in my head like phantom noise. The enemy knew my playlist. He knew exactly how to play it back. But I also learned something. Worship is war. I wasn't just trying to be clean or better. I was in a fight for my soul, and for the souls of everyone still trapped in the illusion. Everyone still dancing in the dark, unaware that their strings were being pulled by forces they couldn't see. So I started talking. I made videos, short clips at first. Just me, sitting in my room, sharing pieces of my story. I titled one, I Died and Saw Ozzy Osbourne. Here's what no one told me about fame. It went viral. Some mocked me, said I was making it up, called it clickbait, religious propaganda, delusion. But others, especially younger people, messaged me in tears. Bro, I've been feeling the same thing and didn't know how to explain it. Your scream? I felt that inside too, but I thought I was just anxious. Your video made me delete half my playlist. Thank you. The messages poured in, so I kept going. I started a YouTube channel. Not flashy, just me, a mic, and the truth. I called it Stage Light because I wanted to expose what was behind the curtain, to help others see that not all light is good. Some light blinds you, distracts you, lures you in. But Jesus, he is the light that reveals. I began interviewing others who had left the industry, had similar dreams, or had been rescued from spiritual deception. Stories of dancers, musicians, fans. Some had never died like I did, but they had awakened, and they all echoed the same thing. We were worshiping at the wrong altar. One night, I did a live stream titled, The Real Reason I Screamed in That Realm. I finally shared the full detail of what I saw when I looked into Ozzy's eyes in that place. It wasn't just him. It was the look behind his eyes. It was a chorus of demonic laughter surrounding him. They weren't attacking him. They were honoring him, as if he had brought millions to their feet in the wrong direction, as if he was their priest. And I had helped build his altar with my lights, my tech, my loyalty. That scream, it was the sound of a soul realizing it had partnered with hell, not in rebellion, but in ignorance. And Jesus didn't accuse me. He rescued me. That's when I knew. My testimony wasn't just for me. It was a warning. And now, it's my life's mission to make sure everyone who will listen hears it before it's too late. It's been 3 years since I died. 3 years since I screamed like my soul was being torn apart. 3 years since I saw Ozzy Osbourne standing on that hellish stage, his eyes hollow, his presence not one of music, but spiritual power gone wrong. People still ask me, do you really believe it was him? I always pause, because the answer isn't that simple. I didn't just see Ozzy. I saw what he represented. In that moment beyond life, he wasn't just a man. He was a symbol, a banner waving over the millions who followed him without question. People who chanted his lyrics, mimicked his rebellion, adored his image while unknowingly marching toward spiritual ruin. He stood there as a monument to cultural idolatry. But I also saw a Jesus, and that changes everything. I used to think Jesus was just some religious figure, maybe important, maybe wise, but distant, dead, historical. Something old ladies in church cried about while I set up speakers for metal shows. I had no concept of him as alive, as present, as powerful. But he is. I saw him in that realm, not as a weak figure draped in sentimentality, but as a king. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't force me. He simply looked at me, and that look undid me. It was love that burned through every excuse I had ever built, mercy that confronted the filth of my compromise, holiness that didn't condemn, but exposed. I was a man pretending to know what light was, and he was light. I saw every fake light I had chased my whole life. Concert spotlights, stage flares, LEDs, fire bursts. All of it looked like cheap paper under his presence. I realized that I had worshiped shadows. When I came back different. Not perfect, but reborn. And now I live to warn others. Because here's what I learned that day, and it haunts me still. Not everyone in hell knows they're there. Some think they're still at a concert, still vibing, still caught in a loop of memories, applause, and rebellion, unaware that eternity has already claimed them. That's the deception. Hell doesn't always look like flames at first. Sometimes it looks like a stage. Let me say that again. Sometimes hell looks like a stage, and the applause is from demons. If you're reading this, I want to ask you something uncomfortable. Who do you worship? Be honest. What name gets your devotion? What voice can pull you out of prayer and into distraction? What icons decorate your wall more than the word decorates your heart? For me, it used to be Ozzy. For you, maybe it's someone else. Maybe it's an artist, a YouTuber, a political figure. Maybe it's a lifestyle, a dream, or even your own reputation. But I'm here to tell you what Jesus told me. You cannot serve two masters. You will love one and despise the other. I love the music, the lights, the vibe, and I didn't realize I was slowly despising the truth. I didn't wake up in rebellion. I drifted there one concert at a time. Now I've turned completely. Jesus is not just my rescuer. He is my Lord. That means I don't get to keep little idols hidden in my heart. That means I say no when the culture begs me to say yes. That means I call out what I used to glorify. I've lost friends. I've been mocked. I've had music blogs drag me through the mud, calling me a sellout, a religious nut, a liar. I don't care. Let them laugh. They weren't there in that realm. They didn't see the eyes of Ozzy staring back at them from a stage not made of wood, but of souls. They didn't hear the scream, my scream, when I realized how close I was to never coming back. But Jesus heard it, and he came for me. And if you hear this story, this warning, and you still go back to the stage that's calling your name, just know that scream might be yours next. But it doesn't have to be. Jesus is calling you too. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Not when your favorite band retires. Not after one last tour. Now. So here's what I want you to do. Wherever you are, turn off the music for just 5 minutes. Ask Jesus out loud if what I'm saying is true. Then listen. You don't need a pastor. You don't need a choir. You don't need incense or stained glass. You need a moment of truth, a moment where you surrender the stage and step into the light. Because what's waiting for you is not religion. It's freedom. It's mercy. It's a Savior who died to rescue even concert techs like me who thought they were just doing their job, but were actually building altars for the enemy. If he saved me, he can save you. If he warned me, I'm here to warn you. Don't wait for your heart to stop. Don't wait to scream. Come now, before it's too late.